Yeah, I gotta go.
Thank you, Cindy.
Can you remove that cup off the table, guys?
Yep, that was mine.
Oh, is that what that was? Pour it on that electronic equipment back there.
No, we moved it on.
Thank you.
Yeah, once I set up.
What I did is I dropped my legs a little bit, and that gave me more.
Once I set up the draw, just using the other hand.
So just know that the people sitting in the middle will be heard and the outer.
So yeah, what I think what we've decided is if Michelle has an answer question or responding to something, we'll switch
Okay.
real quick. And if it's
Thank
me
you.
and Chad, we'll just scoot over a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And when you guys start, if you could please say your name, spell your name, and then the title as you want it to appear on television, please.
So what I'll do is I'll just, we're going to introduce ourselves and then I'll make a brief statement and then I'll open it up to the floor for questions. Is that fair?
Yeah.
You say.
Just spell first and last words.
Okay. Are y'all ready to go?
Yep.
I'm Chad Pinkerton, Pinkerton Law Firm, CHAD PINKERTON.
Mo Aziz, M-O, last name A-Z-I-Z, Abraham Watkins Law Firm.
Michelle Simpson Teagle, MICHELLE SIMPSON TUEGEL. I'm based in Waco, Texas with the Hunt and Teagle Law Firm.
Alan Michael, ALLEN, Michael, MICHEL, Gibson, Hoffman, and Pancione. You're in our offices right now.
Not Michael Allen.
Could you say your name again? I didn't pick it up.
Okay.
Chad Pinkerton,
Okay.
CHAD PINKERTON.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, folks. Thank you for coming. This weekend, I was reminded about this holiday, and I want to first wish you an early Thanksgiving. We have a lot to be thankful about in our lives, certainly in my lives, my children, my family, my work, but there's 58 people and 58 families that are not going to have a great Thanksgiving. They lost their lives. We got 500 people that were shot in this event. We have over 1,000 people that have trampling injuries. This is a very, very important case. It's an important case for the lawyers you see up here. It's also an important case for the victims. How quickly do we forget? It's only been a few months since the incident that occurred in Vegas. Other things happen and we forget. Today is a little bit about reminding us to think about those victims. And on Thanksgiving, hopefully you and others can send out a prayer to the family and the victims. We have filed a lawsuit today for 4 individual lawsuits here in California. We have also filed a lawsuit for 450 other individuals. I know you're going to have questions about each one, and we'll address those as we go. The petition that has 450 essentially has about 30 plus shooting victims, over 100 trampling victims, and 250 PTSD only cases. We are going to prosecute each one of those claims individually in the form of a mass tort. This is not a class action. Each individual will have the right to bring their claims individually and receive compensation based on their individual claim. It's important for these people to get a chance to be heard, get a chance to have a California jury decide this case. Hopefully we will learn during this process, and hopefully the defendants will learn in this process how to make venues like concerts safer. It's highly important. We all enjoy large venues and go to those venues. We are invited to those venues by people and companies. We pay to be there. And one of the minimum things that we expect is to be safe. And what we're going to show in this case is the defendants did not keep these people safe. The security was an utter failure. They had no plan. They violated their own policies. They violated industry standard policies. And they ignored what their own experts told them to do. So we need them to do better. And lawsuits are one way that we can help companies do better. Now I'm going to open it up to questions. Feel free to ask any question you'd like. We're here as long as you guys have questions. This is important to us and our clients.
Presumably, the surviving victims and the relatives of those killed are also going to want to know how this happened. So can you talk a little bit about what you might be looking for in discovery?
Well, how and why is a very important question for the victims. They want to know answers to those two questions. That's part of our job as lawyers to do that. How it happened is the defendants, MGM, Mandalay Bay, and Live Nation, ignored standard safety protocols in security. Flat out ignored them. They didn't implement the standards for the industry. And they even had experts come in and recommend to them things that they could do better, specifically for an active shooter. And they did not accept any of those recommendations to our knowledge.
What are some of those things that you, what are some of those standards that you said that they ignored?
There's a lot of things. Hallway cameras would be important in a case like this. They could have identified the perpetrator moving in and out of his hotel room, what he was taking into his hotel room. Could have monitored him locking that exit door and seen that far earlier than they did. They could have followed the industry standard not to use freight elevators for patrons. This man did not make one trip with 10 bags. He made multiple trips with 10 bags. They could have used wanding. MGM has a strict policy of no guns. One way to check for guns is simple. Just wand the bags when they enter, especially if they're going to enter a private area like a freight elevator. That could have been easily done, but it was ignored. There's other establishments that have already came forward and said, we do these things. There was the delay. I know there's some controversy here. I don't think there's going to be much of a controversy at all. There was a 6-minute plus delay. There was a decision made not to make that phone call to 911 immediately. My instinct tells me that that's going to be because they wanted to control the environment and control the message before the public and the media was involved. Certainly they didn't know that they were going to have an evil act such as this, but they could have anticipated it. They could have foreseen it, but they also could have warned. Let's talk about the security they had. 2 to 4 security officers outside at the time of this incident. Limited security inside at the time of this incident. How did they react to this incident? We have witnesses that have come forward and said, look, the people that worked at Mandalay Bay and even some of the security officers were ushered out the back door rather than helping. The reason that happened is because they didn't have a clearly outlined policy, and they didn't follow their policies that they did have. That involves training. Live Nation did not have proper exits. We all know that when there is an emergency, the fundamental thing that we need to do is allow people to leave safely. That involves exits. It's very, very simple. Just have adequate exits. Train your people that you hire for security and staffing to know where the exits are. We have witnesses that come forward and said they didn't even know where the exits were. How could the patrons know if not even the security or the staff didn't know? That's a very real problem. If you're going to hire security, maybe Craigslist with no experience is the best place. Maybe you should hire experienced personnel to protect the 22,000 people that you invited there to enjoy a concert that they expected to remain safe. There's many, many other things that's going to come out in this litigation. I think that that's a fair, brief overview.
But
Are those things outlined in the complaint, or
I didn't hear you, sir.
Are those outlined in the complaint? The specifics you went into, I didn't see that.
So, in California, you don't have to outline things specifically, and certainly if you did that, the complaints would be hundreds of pages long. That's not what you're required to do. We outline them generally, and then the facts come out in discovery, and during discovery, we will question the defendants on these specific issues, but those are not outlined specifically per se.
Why did you choose California as a location?
Well, about 65% of our clients are from California. California has the absolute right, as a state in this union, to protect its citizens. They were here, and they were invited to go to Nevada to attend this concert. They paid for their tickets here. They traveled from here to there. Now that they're home and they're being treated, their doctors and experts that are treating them are here. But the fundamental premises is every state has the right to incorporate laws and then determine how we're going to enforce those laws. And I believe a jury in the state of California is best served to sit in judgment of these defendants for these plaintiffs.
Where are the plaintiffs located? Besides Las Vegas, are you suing the parent companies? Or?
Yeah, so MGM and various MGM entities will be sued. Live Nation and its associated entity will be sued. CSC, the security company, has been sued. Those are the defendants that we believe are responsible.
Can you talk about the difference between a class action and a mass tort and why you guys went that route?
Certainly. A class action would be inappropriate for a case like this. The damages for the individuals are varying. Their injuries vary. You have psychological injuries. You have physical injuries through trampling. You have gunshot wounds. You have severe gunshot wounds. You have people that were in comas, are recovering from a coma state, and you have people that lost their lives. In a class action, you need damages that are similar or the same. In a case like this, a mass tort is appropriate because each individual's case can be determined on its individual merit. And that's what we want. What we want is each one of our clients to come forward and have the opportunity to be examined by a jury of 12 to determine what they're rightfully entitled to. To lump them into a group would be wrong because their claims are individual. They're personal to each one of these people. I have talked to many of my clients directly. I've reviewed over 50 videos from my clients of what they went through. I've reviewed numerous text messages, Facebook posts, voicemails of people calling their loved ones, praying, telling their children goodbye. These are personal issues. They deserve an individual case.
How long do you think the whole process will be because of the enormous number of people involved?
I don't think the number of people really impacts that. Mo and I have done mass torts for a long time. Mass torts can be resolved as quickly as 8 months or 3 years. There is no way for a lawyer to sit up here and tell you that on the day that we filed the lawsuit. I will tell you this. We are going to pressure these defendants. We are going to push discovery. We're going to work extremely hard to try this as soon as possible. I am hoping that the court will give us a trial date within 18 months. But I certainly wouldn't speak for a judge in California. The judge has the right to determine the path of this case. But our job is to get this to a trial and a jury trial, which I fully expect to try, as soon as possible. For the people that are injured, you understand that these people are waiting. Some people can't afford medical care. They can't get the psychological care that they need. Miss Staples, my client, she is being sent out of her hospital at this time and trying to be removed to a long-term care facility for which they cannot find. She needs to be compensated so she can afford that long-term care for the rest of her life. That's why we need to get to a trial quickly. And that's what we're going to ask the court to do. But we understand this isn't the court's only case. We are respectful of that. We've done this enough to know that.
In the last weeks, we learned about a couple of sheriff deputies from Orange County who have encountered some difficulties to get insurance benefits because they were off duty in another state. My question to you is, some of your clients, are they law enforcement from either California or other places? And if so, what kind of implications does that have?
To my knowledge, we don't have any direct law enforcement clients. We certainly have security officers that were there. We certainly have staff members that were at Live Nation that were there that are bringing claims. But to my knowledge, I do not know of a police officer that was involved in our case. We haven't filed it, that's for sure.
Can you kind of talk about the group of people being represented? So it's people who are at the show, like security staff, anything else we're missing?
All of our PTSD cases, that's people that didn't suffer a physical injury. They're suffering from these mental injuries. It's a very serious issue, folks. The number one reason our military men and women, when they come home, the number one health issue that they suffer from is PTSD. And it's a killer. Drugs, alcohol, depression, suicide. We take those cases very, very seriously. My law firm was one of the first law firms in Texas to try that issue to rest. I've recovered for over 1,000 people on PTSD alone, so we take that very seriously. All of our PTSD claims were at the concert. We have not filed a single PTSD claim for anybody that wasn't at the concert. That doesn't mean that people that weren't at the concert don't have a right to bring a claim for PTSD. They certainly do. But we thought was best in this first petition was to file a suit with just the people that were at the concert. We certainly have gunshot wound victims. There's 30 plus in the petition of gunshots. They vary in range. Some are through and through injuries, shot in the leg and the arm. Some are very, very serious life-intensive injuries. Multiple of those victims have had several surgeries each. We certainly have Miss Staples that was shot in the head, and we certainly have the two deceased that were killed on the scene.
So of the total group of people, would you say the vast majority are people who are attending the show, and then the rest are people who were working the events?
No, I would say 99% of all the clients that were filed in this lawsuit were people that were attending the show as patrons.
Okay, so mostly patrons and then a few employees.
That's correct.
Staffers.
Now, given the fact, and correct me if I'm wrong, but given the fact that you said this is not a class action lawsuit, this is an individual, what would be a positive outcome for your office and for every single one of them, if you can generalize it?
Okay, so here's one of the things we want to do, and this is almost to the T for my clients. We want to learn from this, and we want to make change because of this happening. But importantly, for a plaintiff's lawyer, for the clients, is to get fair compensation. Am I going to tell the judge or you folks of what I believe fair compensation is? No, I'm not going to do that, because that's within the purview of 12 people that we haven't selected yet. We're going to allow a jury in California to decide that for us. But let's be honest. How do you come about change in a case like this? Well, you got to hit the defendants pretty hard in the pocketbook for them to pay attention. And if you hit them hard in the pocketbook, guess what? Everybody else in this industry starts listening. If there's great public outrage, the federal government and state governments start to listen. We need change. These things are happening at a very high rate. This is the world we live in. If we're not prepared to make changes and protect people better, we're going to continue to see this. We can't wait for evil to happen and then do something about it. That's retroactive. It is too late. It's too late for the 58 dead. It's too late for the 500 plus shot. It's too late for the 1,000 plus injured and trampling. And it's too late for the 22,000 people that will never forget this event for the rest of their lives. What we need to be is proactive. We can do that. We know how to do that. The question is if we're going to do it. And I believe this case is going to show that MGM and Live Nation chose not to do it.
Given the range of injuries described in the claims, I know it's hard to put a number on potential damages, but do you think we're talking tens of millions for this group, hundreds of millions? Like, if you had to say.
Okay, so a job of a lawyer in a case like this is to evaluate the claims. We have fully vetted all the claims that we filed. That's our ethical obligation as a lawyer, as a guest here in California, working under a pro hoc vice. California has allowed Mo and myself and the other lawyers here to work and help the court. But we have vetted those. But have we gotten to the process of determining what each value of each case is? No, absolutely not. That's going to take a long time. We're going to do it. We're going to make an evaluation for each one of our clients, not as a group. Each client will have their independent evaluation for their damages based on medical records, based on their experience, based on their pain and suffering. But do you want a number? How about this number? How about $1 billion? How about that? I think that would be a fair number for MGM to understand what this case is all about, to make some changes, and for the industry to recognize the risk for not following security protocols, not having a plan.
Can you talk about the venue? How there was barricades all over, there was no exits, thus the trampling?
Yes, sir. We were given access to the site a couple of weeks ago, and I went out there with our expert team, and there were other groups there as well. And what I saw a lot, and this has all been documented and will come out during the course of this litigation, is that there was no clearly marked exit signs for people to leave. And the exits that were there, some of them were actual exits, but they were blocked off for whatever reason. And during the course of interviews, we also found that some of the entrance areas, the gates, you could come in, but you could not get out of. So one of the issues in this case is going to be how did Live Nation plan for any type of natural or unnatural disaster in this case. I mean, we could have had a tornado hit over there, and people would still have to get out of there, or there could have been a fire or any type of natural disaster. There could have been an active shooter on the premises. We have shootings these days, as Chad said, all the time. So one of the heavily litigated issues in this case is going to be what are the duties of a concert venue promoter on coming up with a security plan. And given the age that we live in, with active shooters, with people driving trucks into crowds, we had the Astros won the World Series in Houston, and there was a big parade. And I was worried that my staff that had gone to the parade, I was worried for their safety. 5 years ago, people didn't think like this. So it's unfortunate, but venue promoters and venue owners are going to have to account for the realities of life these days, which is that there could be a security risk.
Will you be promoting stricter gun laws or anything like that related to the case?
That's a good question, sir. So if you notice, there were some filings in Nevada that sued the bump stock manufacturer that the shooter had used. And there's also been some filings in against some gun manufacturers. Our focus in this case is not about gun control, because I think a lot of our clients feel strongly about their rights, about gun ownership, and their constitutional rights. So this lawsuit is not about gun control. This lawsuit is about promoting security in the hospitality industry. And as Steve Wynn came out and said the week after this, that his casinos they've made changes at their casinos. They've been making changes because of the world we live in, And so this case is not about gun control. This case is about promoting security at concert venues, at hotels, at casinos, any type of place where somebody can get access to a large number of unsuspecting victims and cause massive harm. That's what we want to change.
Did I read correctly that you're also suing Paddock's estate?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
How much can you get there, do you know?
I think that's more of an issue that our clients have expressed both to Chad and Michelle and me individually, that although Paddock's estate is going to have a limited amount of recovery, they want to make sure that that claim is made just because of the personal animosity that there is for the shooter's actions.
There have been several other cases here in California and Nevada that are along similar lines against Live Nation and MGM. What do you think is the likelihood of all these cases being joined together, as sometimes happens with corporate litigation?
So one of the experts that we've hired, sir, has been retained in other cases against Live Nation. And, these cases they have common themes in them, in that the theme is always security or premises liability and foreseeability as to what does the premises owner, what do they foresee from a security perspective. I don't think these cases are going to get joined with any other cases, but they're going to be, the experts are going to overlap, but the cases themselves are going to stay separate.
Why is that? What do you anticipate?
Just because they're different incidents. I think I think what you're talking about is other pending litigation against casinos and Live Nation, correct?
Yeah, related to October 1st.
Okay, yes, sir. I think those might get consolidated into one big case for discovery purposes. Now, the question would be, is that going to be in California, or is that going to be in Nevada, or some combination thereof? Ultimately, the cases are going to get tried either as individual cases or groups of cases, but they will get all consolidated, I believe.
Including yours?
Yes, sir.
And I'm sorry, did you say how many deceased clients you have? Families?
We currently represent 2 of the deceased individuals and their estate and their family members. Frankly, we anticipate more based on lawyers who are calling us to help them with their cases, but right now those are the 2 that we are focused on.
And then did you say 250 are PTSD?
At least 250 of the 450 are PTSD only. Over 100 of the claims in the 450 are trampling-related injuries that can be very serious, and then you have the other filings and the shooting cases.
You mentioned a 65% of something, I'm sorry.
65% of the 450 are California residents.
Gotcha, thank you.
And are some of the PTSD cases family members that weren't even there, but they were traumatized by their loved ones being injured, or they were there?
Okay, so you wouldn't have a claim for the PTSD claim, which is really negligent infliction of emotional distress. That's the legal claim. If you weren't there, or if you weren't in close proximity. So maybe some lawyers would bring those claims, but that's not a legitimate claim unless they were there and experienced the event.
I didn't hear you saying this, and it's bouncing in my mind. Are you guys taking some action or legal action against the Vegas Police Department or any authorities that might have not been involved?
Absolutely not.
The 5 folders in front of you each contain one of your clients' cases. Are they representative of your overall tort case?
So we currently represent over 750 individuals. We have only vetted 450 of those. One of the filings that you see in front of me is the 450 individuals that include the types of claims we discussed. And then we have Ms. Staples' claim in there, and we have Dixie's claim in there for her husband, Chris, and then we have Rocio's claim for her husband.
What's the other one? So it's got Gasper.
Paige Gasper was the case that was dismissed and moved to here.
Actually, I can speak to Paige's case. Michelle Teagle, I represent, we'll switch, okay. Sorry about that. Michelle Teagle, I'm one of the attorneys representing Paige Gasper. Just last week, we had Paige's case voluntarily dismissed in the state of Nevada. The reason being is that Paige is a resident of California, and after doing additional discovery, there are also multiple defendants who are from the state of California, and so we made the decision that Paige's case would be best served by also moving it to California. So we have refiled her case now in this state. Paige is doing better physically, but has a long road ahead of her psychologically and is starting to struggle, as many of our clients are, as they start to process the trauma of October 1st and seek counseling.
What about the others that are in hers?
Sure. A number of the other clients in the same complaint filed with Paige's, there are a few that have psychological injuries. We represent some individuals who also have trampling injuries in that complaint. One of the clients in that complaint was also an employee and was acting as an usher at the event. And what's important about her claim is that she was acting in some capacity as security. She was supposed to be helping people, or at least to know where to send people in the event of emergency. It's our understanding from that client that she was never told what the security plan or emergency response plan would be, that there was never a sit down with all of the employees who were having these directive roles in the venue of here's what we do in case of an emergency. And that's not her fault. That's on the companies who were orchestrating this event and who had responsibility for security and failed not only their employees who were working in this event, but they also failed the people who were attending. And so, you know, we have a lot of compassion for the people who were working it and who were failed not only by their employers, but by other contractors and companies at the event. I also have a client who was trying to get out of an exit, and he went to an exit that he believed he would be able to get out of, and it was locked. It's our understanding that there was not a clear plan as to where the exits were, and that a lot of the thousands of people who were in this venue and attending this concert did not know how to get out. And so when this client went to this, what he thought was an exit, and it was locked, that required him to turn around and go back into the killing zone. And as many of these individuals faced, then they were injured or trampled or shot because they couldn't get out of the venue. And so that's something that I think a lot of the individuals in a number of the complaints are facing.
I'm sorry, can you clarify? The 450, does that include your client or those are separate?
Ma'am, let me clarify that.
Yeah, because I'm,
Sure.
I don't know what the folder
Yeah, let
is.
me just kind of break it down so we can kind of clarify all of that. There are 5 lawsuits that were filed today by this legal team that's sitting before you. 2 of those are death cases. They were filed individually. One of them is what we believe, what Chad and I believe to be the most catastrophic case in this litigation, which is the Staples case. Because of the head injury and the nature of the bullet wound to the head. There's another case that was filed, case number 4, which is the 450 cases that were filed as part of one complaint. And those include around 40 bullet wound cases, actual gunshot wounds. They have trampling plus PTSD type of injuries and also PTSD injuries. The 5th complaint is the Gasper complaint. That's the complaint that Ms. Teagle just talked about, which was initially filed in Nevada. And then we moved that case to California as the part of the rest of the cases of our team. So, total 5 petitions filed today, 2 death cases, 1 major catastrophic injury case, 450 cases, and then the Gasper case from Nevada. Does that give some clarification?
Yeah.
Okay.
What courthouse are you going to be litigating in?
You know, I'm going to let Alan Michaels talk about that. He's our partner in California on that, and I think he's best suited to talk about that, answer that question.
If you could also answer when you expect that this might actually be heard.
And one more thing before you start, I'm sorry, I'm with a TV station in Spanish. Do you guys have anybody that can give me a statement in Spanish?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Do you guys have anybody that can give me a statement in Spanish?
Maybe later on we can get you somebody, sir.
Later today or some other day?
I think we can talk about that after we're done, but I think I can probably get you somebody.
Just for that, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Alan Michael, I am local counsel. The 5 complaints that Mo just spoke of have been filed in Los Angeles Superior Court downtown. We have asked the court to consider these complex cases, and under California procedural rules, a complex case is usually removed to a separate courthouse where the judges don't have a large number of cases so much. They have smaller number of cases, but the cases tend to be complex. So we fully expect, actually the first step is that these cases will be deemed related. We will tell the court that the Gasper case is related to the Staples case, it's related to the Abraham case, and they will all be related and probably assigned to one judge, and that probably will be a judge in the complex unit of the Los Angeles Superior Court. Going to the question of timing, those of us who litigate in the complex courthouses know that one of the reasons they're in the complex courthouses, they don't meet the time standards that are set up for the everyday judge who takes all comers. They're given basically a guideline of let's try to get most cases handled within a year. The complex cases, almost by definition, are moved to the complex unit because that's going to be very difficult to do, either because of the number of defendants, number of plaintiffs, number of witnesses, the complexity. And then another issue that came up that's not specifically about these cases, but somebody asked the question earlier about what about the other cases. The courts do have, in California, the courts have the opportunity to, there are statutes that allow what is known as coordination. So if there are cases in another county, they can be coordinated, and if there are cases in Los Angeles County, they can be consolidated. This has to do with motions. Somebody goes to the judge and says, why do we have one judge who's handling these cases in the October 1 shooting? Let's put them all together. So all of that creates uncertainty. How do we know whether or not we're going to be 5 of the specific cases with, what do we have, some almost 500 different people, with another group of counsel who have 17 or 1,700 or however many. So we just don't know how long that's going to take to get organized, but we know that it's going to take some months to get the complaints out and have everybody come in, and the court's going to say, okay, this is the population of cases. So it's hard to answer the question of how long.
Were these actually filed today?
Yes, these we have case numbers. That's one of the things we were waiting for, was to get proof that these were filed today, this morning at around 11 o'clock, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Just want to suck it, I'll never get on TV. Boring.
Thank you. Sorry to bug you on that.
I
Hey, no
enjoyed
problem.
your explanation of complex